we're doing exercise 2C. If you look here in D2L, for today's date, it says developing the cross member form part 2. By that I meant the front right, the cross member right front right. That same one we started working on last time. Last time we made what we called the U channel, like a front wall and a top wall and a rear wall, but we didn't finish it. It was kind of like, it looked like just like a channel, but we had to put some flanges on it. That's what we're doing. We're finishing up that same cross member. After we're done today, it won't have these holes in it that you see. That's a later exercise, but it'll have this shape to it. We already made this stuff. All we're doing, well, most of what we're doing today is just making this flange around the outside, the weld flange. Okay. And another thing we don't have yet, we don't have this bump in the floor pan. So our weld flange today is gonna go straight across here. Like this little flat would continue straight across. This bump won't be here. Because we're gonna add that later, and we're gonna show you, even after you're done, you can still add features that might change other parts. So that's part of that exercise. But again, we're really making this flange. And that weld flange, it mates to a bunch of sheet bodies we already have in the floor pan, okay? So this part of the weld flange, it's gonna mate to really this fillet right here, this giant fillet in the floor pan. It's like a 500 mil radius fillet. This part of the weld flange mates to this, which if you remember, that was a little flat, we made a log extension back there, okay? This mates to right here, that's gonna mate to that main slab we've been working with a few times. And this one over here, that mates to the, that slab we used back when we made the trim, the weld flange, the flange on the end, right, the outer flange. We started with a slab and it mates to that one there. So that's what we're doing today, making those. What we're also doing, I can show you on this part, is let me hide this guy for a second. We are adding an extra little step on the tunnel. Right now, the tunnel, on your part, and I'll show you mine in a second, this is a finished one, but I'm still working on my classroom project. Right now, the tunnel comes across like this, it goes to about here, and it goes up this way. There's an extra bump in this one. So when we're done today, and actually the first part of the exercise is this, we're gonna have kind of an intermediate level. You know, that was the lower level, that's the upper level. This little flat, there's a flat right on top here. That's gonna be an intermediate, and we already have this transition, but this transition right now on our part is going down to the lower level, but it's gonna stop at the mid-level, and then there's gonna be another transition down here. And again, that's to show you that, well, wait a minute, we already finished the floor pan and we had the tunnel in there. Now you're saying it's gotta change, and yes, we can do that. Obviously, parametric modeling can always do that. But you just gotta pay attention to the order that you do things and where you add the changes that you didn't make in the first place, right? Because we weren't planning on that bump, we did the whole part. I got all the way down, you know, the last thing you do in the floor pan was a trim sheet. But now I say, well, the trim sheet was a main form, but the main form's changed. So you gotta go back in time to figure out the best place to make that. And with NX, it's a little tricky because, I'm gonna open up mine now, that's what I've been working on. Okay. So here's mine, and as you can see, I don't have that mid-level bump in there. I'm gonna hide these guys. Oh, you know what, like I sometimes like to do, I'm going to just remind you of another thing that happens sometimes, okay? And you might be wondering why. See these parts, I opened up the assembly, I just want the file open, I went to my floor pan assembly. And they showed up like this, but they're not fully loaded, okay? I wanna remind you of that. I know that because there's no little squares around those red check marks. And yes, if you make one active, if you make it a work part, that fully loads it. Now, if I get out of this as a work part, once you fully load it, it's loaded in that section. It's not gonna unload it again unless you unload it. But the other ones don't load automatically. That's a setting that, you know, it's for purposes of not slowing down your session. Sometimes you open an assembly and there might be 500 parts in it. Do you really need all 500 of those parts fully loaded? Maybe most of them you're not gonna actually work on. Maybe you just want them there for reference. You can measure still if they're not fully loaded. But if you wanna load everything, and like for us, it's okay to load them all because there's not that much data in all these. So if we always fully load the floor pan plus 4 cross members, you're not gonna see any performance difference. But if you wanna do that, if you really care, that's a setting here under File, Assembly Load Options. I think I showed you this before, but I'm just reminding you. Every time it comes up, I think I should tell them about that. Right here, when you load, it loads all the components, but how does it load them? There's an option. In mine it says minimally load light. Okay, that means it's not gonna fully load. If you wanna work on one, it'll fully load it. If you wanna fully load the whole assembly every time, just set this to fully load. Then when you open the assembly, all the parts are gonna also fully load. Just an FYI. Nothing to do with the project, but just wanted to say that, okay? So, I'm gonna actually go into my floor pan and start doing what I was telling you about. The floor pan needs an extra bump in it. Maybe I'll hide these guys for a minute. Okay. Needs an extra bump in it. And if I make it the work part, and then I look at it, okay, all I see right now is my finished floor pan. I don't see any other older surfaces or whatnot. But we want that bump, you know, this is one of those things you can sort of think about it logically. Where we're actually adding the bump is really along the top of the tunnel. So first thing I can do, just as far as, you know, if I'm gonna take on this task, I know there's a tunnel feature group, and then in the top tunnel, there's some stuff in there, okay? And the way we made it, and this is just an investigation tool, go back in time. Let's see, I'll go to about here. I'm just randomly picking something in the top tunnel. You remember how you go back in time, right? Make current feature. It says, all right, at that point in time, you had this stuff. I don't need the right side right now, I'll just hide it. Sometimes it shows things that were visible at the time you did that last time. I got a curve there I don't really need to see, but it's showing me that at that point in time, where am I, in the top tunnel, right here, I had a couple of offset surfaces. If you remember, this was for the lower part of the tunnel, that was for the front upper part of the tunnel. And I also made, well, I guess I shouldn't have went to the intersection curves. I should have went to this law extension. I'll make that the current feature. That's when we made that thing. That was the law extension. And that was our transition kind of surface. We have this rear, comes up that transition and finishes up on the top, okay? From there, we made a couple of face blends. This is why I'm doing the demo, because I don't went into all these details in the instructions. So the first face blend I made was taking that lower offset and adding it to the transition. Then I made another face blend to add those two things to that, okay? And then what happened after that, that was our finished, that whole thing, if I picked the sheet body. And actually I should have named that top tunnel defined, and I didn't. But if I picked a sheet body, that was really the result of that last face blend. That is my top tunnel defined as of right now. But as I just said, we actually want to add a little bit more to it. We want to put a bump in it. And just mathematically or even logically, you can think, well, it's probably not hard to do. You know, make a surface that represents that and make a surface that represents that little upturn there, and then just blend it into this, right? And that is kind of true, but what's important, and this is what I wanted to this is why I wanted to demo this, okay? What's important is for us to do that in an easy way. I do want to put it here. I'm going to add it right after this. So I'm basically going to say that face blend, now, after I'm done, it's no longer going to be the last thing to make my top tunnel. There's going to be a couple more things in there, because I'm going to add a bump to it. So the last thing in my top tunnel will be this plus a few more things, okay? But here's the important part. You know how every time we make a face blend or we do a trim sheet or a trim body or any one of those things, when it asks you to pick faces, I keep saying set it to body faces. And actually it does that by default now, I think. This is where it's important if it's set to body faces, right? Because, well, I'll get to this point. If I pick that face blend, again, that was the last thing I did in the top tunnel. And I'm about to change the last thing in my top tunnel. So what I'm really looking at is what came after this? What am I going to affect if I change this stuff, right? And you know, if you single click, it shows you in blue the things that came right from that. And I can even do this. Okay, there was an intersection curve. If I double click just temporarily to see that one, makes that the current part. And yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. I made an intersection between that top tunnel surface and that right side tunnel. And look how it picked it. It used body faces. When I picked the top tunnel, whatever I had finished as my top tunnel, that had it on body faces, okay? I also did another intersection curve, same thing. It was on the other side, but I picked it using body faces. More importantly, another thing I did with the top tunnel surface downstream was, this one? Yeah, this trim and extend, right? We took the right side and we added the top tunnel surface to it right here. So what I'm saying is if I change the top tunnel surface, I want this downstream thing I did, this make corner, I want that to pick up the new one, okay? So here's the real important thing. I don't expect you to memorize what I'm saying. You might be a little fuzzy with this. It's very logical, and it is really why I keep saying to pick with body faces. When I selected whatever my top tunnel surface was at the time, it was set to body faces. See it up here? Okay. What that means is, if I now go back in time, that stuff is all one sheet body. If I showed you already. If I show it as the sheet body, actually I can do it here. Set the sheet body and just pick it. That's all one body. If I do at this point in the history, if I add a few more things to it, another bump in there, it's going to change that sheet body. So this is a sheet body right now. In an earlier step, the sheet body was only that piece. That was the sheet body a few minutes ago. Well, not a few minutes ago, a couple weeks ago. That was the sheet body. But then when I added the top surface, it changed the sheet body. The entire sheet body changed to that. And I think you can grasp what I'm saying. Every time you add more features together with blends or whatever, the whole sheet body changes. The fact that my downstream children, like the trim and extend down here, the fact that it knows whatever that body is, whatever they do to that body, even if they go back and change history, it's going to take that entire body, even if there's new things added to it. That's what it is. If this was set to like single faces and I just picked faces, or sometimes if it's set to tangent faces and maybe I'm adding faces that aren't tangent anymore, it won't pick up the new ones when I go back in time and change things. And again, it's tricky to understand what I'm saying. I'm not really doing anything, I'm just talking a lot and pointing at things. But when you set these settings to body faces, like doing the trim and extend, that told my whole part, that told my whole history, whatever happened to this body before the trim and extend, if you added more things to it, it's going to automatically pick those up, because anything you do to that body, it just makes a bigger body. It keeps accumulating more in the body. All right. Again, you may not fully feel warm and fuzzy about that, but it is the reason why we're doing what we're doing, why we pick with body faces all the time. So, to actually do the change, to add that bump, I'm going to go back. It tells you in the instructions, go back to this law extension, which was that transition surface, make it the current feature. Okay? And just the way we're going to do it, you know, that kind of intermediate surface is going to be right around here somewhere. Remember the highest one and the lowest one, they were offsets of that slab we had. I think I have a copy of the main slab up here somewhere, way up in the top. That one. They were both offsets of that one. So essentially I'm going to make another offset of that one up in here somewhere, whatever my numbers are supposed to be. And then for the back of the bump, so again, the new bump is actually going to be a transition wall coming up like this. That actually goes into our lower surface. It comes up about halfway, and then it goes all the way forward into that front transition surface. So that little piece that comes up like this, I'm going to need another transition surface for the back of this new bump. And just the way our design is, we can take a copy of this one, essentially, okay? But we have to do a couple things, and this, again, here's another reason why I want to explain this. It says, you know, the existing transition surface, this guy right here, it got consumed, right? If I go to the very next step, if I go to this face blend, or actually this, the next face blend after that, sorry. Why don't I? Oh, I'm sorry, wrong. I'm in the wrong set. In the top tunnel. Those two face blends. That transition surface, it got consumed here. I can't offset that backward, okay? So what I have you do, now you might think, well, there's a faster way to do this, but what I have you do is, in the top tunnel, back again where I was, sorry, I keep bouncing around here, right there. I wanna move this, but knowing that it actually gets consumed further on, I wanna move an extraction of that. Okay, so we're gonna do an extracted body. I think that's what I'll tell you. Yeah. And I'm gonna put it right after itself in the tree. So remember, there is a formal extract feature command. There is one in the home tab, under the more button, you can go to extract geometry. But a real easy way to do it right after its parent, right click and extract body here. Okay. The problem with that one is, it is right on top of the original one, and I need it over here. So it's gonna be that little back rearward transition downward, right? So we do this thing called move object. Okay, that's in the tools tab. Move object actually isn't done as often as you might think. Only because it's got some weird settings on it. And realistically, like, well, why are you moving something? You should have designed it there in the first place. But in this case, it's okay because we're moving something that we didn't really have to design again. We just brought out a copy of another thing, and it's easy enough to move it. Now, you might also think, well, why did you extract a copy? You could have went to the original, right? At that point in time, back in history, that law extension, let me see if I can explain this. That law extension, when I made that the current feature, it did exist by itself. And I should have been able to just move and copy that thing before these face blends, because again, those face blends are when I consumed the law extension. So I'm saying this, again, this is gonna be fuzzy in your head. You might be thinking, well, all right, so you're gonna select an object to move. I'm gonna select, and I wanna be careful, I'm gonna hide that law extension. I wanna pick this thing. So the object I'm gonna move is that's the extracted copy. Of course, it says you can't do that, give me a message, because I don't have it on either move parents or associative, okay? That's why it's saying that. It says turn on move parents or change the selected objects. I don't want to move its parent, because its parent is the actual original transition. So if you turn on associative, then it's going to know, okay, this is an actual move in the tree. It knows the original one was over there. If it's associative, then it says, okay, we'll remember where the first one is, right? So far so good. It seems to make a lot of sense, I think. I don't know the way I'm explaining it. It makes a lot of sense. But right here, there's also a copy original. Okay, that's what I was talking about. I'm saying this because you guys doing the exercise, you might go into that window and you might see that there was a copy original, and you might think, why didn't we just take the law extension, go to move object, make it associative, but do a copy, right? Well, for whatever reason, when you do a copy, I don't know why NX does this, but when you do the move object and you turn on copy original, it doesn't let you make it associative. There's no associative button. So you can't move it and copy one at the same, you can't copy one and move it at the same time. I don't know why. Everybody that I ever talked to, people that have been using NX way longer than me, they're like, I don't know, it's always been that way. You can't make an associative copy in the move object command while you're moving something. So that's why we had to make the extracted body, okay? Because I have to use move, and I have to use move original, and I have to make it associative. So I had to have something I could actually move. I can't move the original law extension, because it's got to stay there for my original transition. I need a new one, so I have to do a move. I have to move something, so I had to make a copy. That was a long way of explaining things, and you might not be real comfortable with that, what I just said either, but that's what it does. So it says set it to distance, and in this case, without having to measure anything, we're just basically saying we're going to go in the X direction, 275 mils, like that. So again, my new bump is it's gonna actually start here, but then the middle, there's gonna be a mid surface in between these two. Okay. Well, I could have made the other offset first, or I could make this first. It doesn't really matter. But I'm gonna make that. I don't know if I have to turn that. Name that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna name that move object. Rear step transition. Okay. Rear step transition. So now I got another surface that it actually is linked. It is a move object and it's associative. It knows it was moved from up here. It knows it was moved original long extension was there, okay? And the extracted body now is moved. So the extracted body has been moved to a different spot, which is what I need, right? Then it says, let's see. Yeah, we're gonna do the other offset. The other offset, the second offset for that tub is, I do have you go up from the, I thought I couldn't remember. I thought it was coming up from the bottom one again, because I don't know if you remember, but the rear top came up from the bottom surface, and the forward top came up from the bottom surface. For some reason, maybe because in our specifications, the important part of this bump is it's a certain distance from here. So, whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna do an offset surface. I shouldn't say whatever, I think it's important to know why we're doing it. We're gonna offset that one upward 35 mils. Why 35? Because that's what I told you. And it needs to go up, like so. So before I finish, the new bump is gonna come up this guy a little bit and then go across there, okay? And then meet up with whatever we have in front. So I'm gonna hit okay. Yeah. Then it says, let's hide these two things for a second. This one and, make sure you get the right one. The one that's slightly higher, we wanna use that one. I'm gonna hide the original rear top tunnel. Okay, so these are the two that are gonna be a bump, and basically, I'm doing it in the tree before the face blends that finished off the top tunnel surface, okay? But the stuff I got so far, that rear step transition and that offset, they're just kind of floating out there. They really have no effect on anything else, right? But I'm gonna put them together, and we do it in a kind of a simple way, a face blend. So, and if you can visualize this, and even here I'm picking body faces, always pick body faces. And it says do a 150 mil radius. Okay. And I'm gonna hit okay. And that is that new bump. Now if I go I'll actually go all the way to the end of my part, make last feature current. See, it's not affecting anything else, it's just out there all by itself. It's not interrupting any other features I have. Of course, it's not incorporated in the rest of the part. So if I go back where I was, when I just made that was this one, okay? I'm gonna combine it. I'll make current feature. I forgot what I was talking about. I'm gonna finish it up, but remember I did make the statement earlier that I said, I'm gonna add this bump, I'm gonna add it to the end of the top tunnel group. So I needed to create that stuff before I had the blends, but now this blend, if I make that the current feature, that is my top tunnel as it exists right now, with one rear, one transition, one upper, but I still see the little bump. They're not talking to each other yet, but I want to combine those in some new features that add these two things together. I don't spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm going to add a couple new features that combine these two. Let me just try to show this. These two sheet bodies. That one, which is one we've been working with all along. I'm going to combine that one with that one, with that one. All right, they're still not combined, but I'm going to these combinations I'm going to do. It's going to take me a couple of steps, but to combine those together, it's going to add it to what I already have there. Okay. So let's see, it says make the top tunnel defined and make current feature. Top tunnel, I didn't name this. This should be called top tunnel defined. You don't really do it just so I'm following my own instructions. That was the fillet we all made a while back, if you got to that part. If time. Top tunnel defined. So it says, go to that and make it the current feature. That means whatever I create will go right after it, right? That means that top tunnel feature group has to be active for something to go in here, but it's gonna go after that. So again, it's gonna be the last things we do in that feature group. So just because of the way the geometry is, I do wanna blend it. Basically, I want it to come over here along this, then hit this guy and come up this way, and then keep going, and then hit that one on that side. But when you do face blends, NX doesn't always like when you have face blends that meet in two different places. I mean, it would work probably, but it's a little bit safer to do an edge blend, or not an edge blend, I'm sorry. A trim and extend. I'm gonna join these two pieces together that I keep talking about, but there'll be hard edges where they meet, okay? Again, make sure you use body faces. And I'm gonna pick my original one first. Okay. Now sometimes you're looking at these arrows like, what do I wanna keep? And I think that arrow's going the wrong way because it means whatever you pick as the tool, which side of it you wanna keep. And I'm gonna keep the top of this. So if I pick that as a tool using body faces, let me show the result. That doesn't look right. I want it to come like this, go across and come down. So I have to do some reversing here. What if I reverse that one? That doesn't look right either. It's like, made a loop there. So I had to reverse them both. If I reverse them both, that's what I want it to look like, see that? So you can see what my original top tunnel was, I now inserted that little bump in between it. Yes, there's hard edges because we're doing a trim and extend, but that's okay, because now we can put a couple of edge blends on it. We have edges now. So you might think, why do we have that extra step in there? Just because face blends sometimes don't work as well as edge blends, and sometimes it's the other way around. And I think as I was doing it and writing it up, the face blends didn't work as well. So I did trim and extend, which gives me 2 edges. Then I'm gonna make an edge blend. And you can pick more than one edge at a time on an edge blend. Those 2 hard edges I just made at 150, like so. That is the last thing in my top tunnel group, okay? And the point I was trying to make before, that further trim and extend, when I add this to the right side tunnel, it had selected this using body faces. Well, that's the same body, it just has more things added to it. So if I did it right, when I update to the end, I think that's what, I'm supposed to name this first. This should be the new top tunnel defined. It's weird, I don't think I tell you to oh no, I do, I'm sorry, I do tell you to take the text away in the other one. Because I'll have 2 things called top tunnel defined. If I leave it like this. NX doesn't care, but you probably don't want that there, so you can go to rename and just hit delete and enter. That's my new top tunnel defined, right? Now, if I had things done right, and again, when I say that, I mean any children of this, and see when I click on that? Oh, wait, it's not, oh, maybe I think I have to do this, feature correct. It's updating it now. It wasn't updated right, uh-oh. Oh no, that's okay, that's okay. I got a message, it says, edge blends have been consumed, okay? Don't get scared when you see that, because it worked. Can you see this? It worked. Hide that guy. In other words, I still have my full tunnel. It's got the variable fillet along the top there, but it's also got that bump in it. I don't know why it always shows curves like, well, those curves are because of the message I got. Those curves just kind of come out of hiding, but you can hide them again. What that message was I have edge blends, and it actually kind of highlights them here, like right there. I don't know if you can see this. That edge blend has a little symbol next to it, and it says variable radius point change because of a change I just made. Okay. When I changed the top tunnel surface, that intersection that was tied to it, that changed. So the point that was on there, it changed. It's telling me it changed. It didn't say it failed. That's what it is. It's a little warning message, but it's only telling me it changed something. It might be worth looking into, but I know what happened. And there's another one down here. That's an informational alert. It says patches have been created in some areas of tight curvature. Well, that's all these little pieces here, like over here. You might have added different patches of surface, but it didn't fail. It's one of the powerful things about CAD now, edge blends and face blends that we made earlier. Sometimes when we change their parents or their inputs, it automatically recomputes them the best way it can and fixes little things. In the olden days, it didn't do that. It would say, all these other things failed, you gotta go fix them now. Now it kind of fixes it on its own. You still might want to go back and, if you're a purist on all this, you might think, well, no, I was really specific about my face blends or my edge blends. I'm gonna go back and see if I have to change anything. So you might, but in our case, we're not. Okay, so that one, again, I'm just looking at a little message on that eyeball there, or a little symbol. If you wanna, if you acknowledge all those, and you don't wanna keep seeing them, you can actually right click in a blank or a neutral area. You can clear information alerts, which is the blue ones. That was down here somewhere. I still have the warning alerts right there. If you can also clear the warning alerts, assuming you looked at them all and you realize, yeah, I see what happened and I'm okay with it. That way the alerts just go away, okay? You don't have to do that, but if you see them and you're worried about them, you can do that, right? So I must have done things right. And again, if I go to that new top tunnel define, now that it's updated, see, the two intersection curves are its direct children. So is that trim and extend. This trim and extend, it picked up that entire new sheet body with the new bump in it. That's why you use body faces. If you finish and then you go back in time and make changes to some things that were already there, downstream, if you picked it as an entire sheet body, it picks up all the changes. So it's a good example of why we do that, even though it's still going to be fuzzy. I was going to say something else that was really fun. Oh, you know what I was going to show you? I related to what I just showed you. You know, I said this a few times. If you single click on something, in blue it shows direct children. In magenta or some other color, depends on your settings, it shows direct parents. I don't remember if I showed you this or not. There's another way to be a little bit more technical. It's kind of like parents and children in CATIA. You right click and you go to browse. Kind of looks like parents and children in CATIA. Anybody's a CATIA user. And you see here, I clicked on this, I said browse that. Okay, now there's some settings down here. I want to make sure I'm using timestamp down here. I don't want to show feature groups. But it's telling me with a little tree, yeah, you made that top tunnel define. From that, you made a trim and extend. That's the one I showed you. Plus 2 intersection curves. So this is another way to see what am I going to affect if I do something to my top tunnel where I change the top tunnel define. What am I going to affect? And that's how you could look. Before you did it, you could look those up. I'm looking at it after the fact, but it worked on mine, all right? So did I beat that one to death? I think I did. So, all right, so then the next thing to do, and I'm going to demonstrate this in a slightly different way. Actually, what I just did, I'm going to save everything I just did. I made the assembly active, made the work part. I didn't change anything but my floor plan. If I hit this diskette, which says saves the work part and any modified components, I have a modified component, it'll save it. So that's saving my assembly and my floor plan. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to demonstrate. Now, I'm going to have to do these steps on my own, but it'll take me longer to do all the steps because it's a lot of stuff we've already done, or most of it is. And I don't need to spend as much time demonstrating. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to open up my finished one. And I'll just go back in time and kind of walk through the steps. Make that active. And again, you can ignore a little bit of this. That guy. And I'm going to hide these. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like when you're done. And again, not today. You won't have this. You won't have a bump in the floor pan right here, and you won't have a bump in the bottom of the weld flange. But beside that, I'll show you. So in the cross member, right front, seat front. Well, actually, in the instructions at this point it says, you know, I told you this flange, that flange, they're going to be mating to stuff from the floor pan. Okay. This flange down here is going to be mating to something from the floor pan. This one's going to be mating to something from the floor pan. So what I tell you to do is go into the floor pan, and I don't think I have to create extracted bodies. I already have extracted bodies yet. So if I go, you know, for this wall and that wall, actually we don't have a copy of that, but we're going to make one. But these two walls, those are in main shape. That's the right side tunnel. I already have them. There's one. There's one. So it says, show those. It also says go to the weld flange, so weld flange, and show that extracted copy of that guy. Okay? So you can show them. Now, I said I didn't need to do every step, but I just showed you that. But I don't have to do the next steps. Let me go back. So after you show those, then you go into the cross member. Basically, I can see them back there, but I need copies of them in this part, right? Because I need to use them in this part to make that little flange. Well, I actually already have them. They're in weld flanges here. If I go back in time to, let's say I'll do the first one. Make it current feature, okay? I have you do a link body, right? You go to assemblies, wave geometry linker, and you pick those 3 slabs that you see in the floor pan. So you make that one, I'll just jump ahead. You make that one, and you make that one, and actually, oh no, this copy of exhaust clearance, that's something we're gonna do later, that's that little bump, so I'll pretend we're not using that one yet. We also have, up here, I think you already have it in inputs? Yeah, copy of horizontal slab, you already have that one, okay? Oh no, I'm sorry, it's in front surfaces. In front surfaces, I should already have a trim body. I forgot we did that there. So U-channel, front surfaces, yeah, we extracted, no, not that one. Maybe I didn't do it, but. Oh, there it is, right at the bottom. No, that isn't it. What did it say? I'm sorry. Oh, it's a trim body, my mistake. Sorry about this. You're gonna do all this stuff. I was trying to save time and say, well, I see I already have it. Let me just show it. That guy, not this guy. So you'll already have this. You're gonna make link bodies of those three things. Those three things, you already have that one. We're doing this in the weld flanges feature group, right? Well, this one's already there, you're gonna show it. You have those three things, right? Then we're gonna make this blend. Or maybe I'll do that in the next step. Well, either way. This goes back to something we talked about before. That slab right there is the floor pan we've been designing, this one, okay? That's the bottom of the floor pan. It has two sides of metal to it, okay? So the part that we're gonna make we're designing the bottom of the cross member, but that's the bottom of the floor pan. The bottom of our cross member should be touching the metal side of the floor pan. So we actually have to take this thing and offset it upward, which is this one, I think. Let me make that active. Not that one. All right, I think I did it up here. But we offset that up. You're gonna offset that up. I'm gonna offset all these. I'm gonna show you that they're already done. Let me go down to here. So you're gonna offset, let me show you here. Might be even easier to show you here, this part of it. Right? Those are the things I told you you're gonna do law extensions of. And you have the bottom surface. Well, the floor pan we designed with all those surfaces is the lower side or inside material. Where our part's gonna make to them, we gotta take into account the thickness. So those three things, and the bottom, you're gonna offset by the rear floor pan thickness, which we have in this part under user expressions. Oh, actually, didn't we have it? I told you it's in there, right? Where did I say to do? Yeah, maybe when I made this part, I didn't put it in there. There should be a floor pan thickness, because we made it, remember we made it a linked expression. I don't know if you remember that. We made a linked expression in this part. Yeah, it is there, it just didn't show up in there. So there it is, a 0.71. So now that I'm doing this, it's taking me just as long whether I'm doing it or just showing you what I had. Those three things are gonna be offset a little bit to where the actual flange, weld flange should be. Okay, so that's what this is telling us. Okay, so those things are gonna be offset, right? Then we're gonna take those and blend them together. You're gonna make a blend right here, which is this is all in weld flanges now. Here's weld flanges. So here's the stuff. Oh, here's the offset. So there, and again, that's an offset. There's an offset by the material thickness. There's an offset by the material thickness. There's an offset by the material thickness. And then there's that one. I will say this. The bottom, you offset it upward. Because I told you, our floor pan's the bottom of the metal. These, you offset to the right. because the floor pan is the inside and metal comes to the outside. But this one you also offset to the right. And a lot of people think, well, why is that one going to the right? That's because it represents, I don't know if you can see this very well. It's the floor pan on the outside edge. Can you see this? The floor pan comes down and it bends down this way. See that? Here's the top, here's my main slab of the floor pan. Way on the outside weld flange area, this bends downward. So if this is the design side, the material thickness actually comes out that way. Does that make sense? So on the outside wall, it goes outward. It goes to the right. These walls, it also goes to the right because our thickness is that way. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to you, but that's what those are. So anyway, you offset them. Then we're going to do a face blend. Okay, I want to make that current. Right here, where those meet, I'll hide these. All right? Because where our flange is going to be, it actually hits where that blend is. Okay? But here's the thing about this. This can be a little confusing too. It says the fillet radius, blend radius, is a formula. It's 500 minus the floor pan thickness. What? For that radius, right there. Okay? Well, if you think about it, that radius is where we're making that fillet on our actual metal on the bottom of our cross member. So it's away from the original floor pan. The original floor pan, I don't know if you remember this, the original floor pan fillet back in there was 500. But we're offsetting from there to meet where our flange actually hits that. That's why it's offset by the material thickness. We subtract it. So the radius of this fillet right here, it's not 500, it's 499 point something or other. Okay? That's why, if you're wondering, why are you doing that weird number there, right? So then, all right, we do that. Then you make another fillet. What's that fixed? Oh, no, you're not gonna do that. That's the next step. That's the next part. No. I think I can jump to this one. Then you're gonna make this blend right here. Okay? That blend is gonna ultimately be, that blend right here, is gonna be where our little bit of flange is. All this right here is gonna be flange material. We're gonna chop off almost all of it. All we're gonna be left with is a little like 25 mils of it right here. All this extra here, this is all gonna go away. But right here, okay? Here is where the U channel hits the right side of the tunnel. Here's where it mates to that blend. Here's where it mates to the bottom of the floor pan, okay? That part that's up in the front on the table over there, if you want to look at it later, when they weld this, they weld it here, where it meets to the right side walls. They weld it on the bottom, but they don't weld it here. They actually don't even want it to touch here. This little flange, it actually pulls away, because if it was welded all the way around this, spot welded all the way around, it might break when things flex, or it might squeak. They need a little bit of room, they need a little bit of play in here, right? If you go look, before you leave, if you remember it, go look at that. It's not exactly the same as ours, but you can see it's welded along the bottom, and then it goes up to this, looks like a tunnel kind of thing. It actually looks like the sill weld, but look where that, in the corner, there's a big gap down here, all right? So how do we make sure that this isn't touching? This one, we actually make a bigger radius. It says 52, okay? We gave it some leeway to make sure it wasn't gonna touch. How does a bigger radius there make it pull away, right? Well, if you think about it, I'll just do this. I don't write stuff very often, but if I have a couple pieces here, like this, and they sort of meet like this, right? If I have a small radius where they meet, say that's 50, but I want another radius between those two that pulls away from it, that would be down here. That would be a bigger radius. It's only by 2 mils. A smaller radius would actually go in that way, and it would actually probably crash into that other radius, right? Because the one on the floor pan is 50 mils. That's the floor pan. Here we want the sides. This is coming. Let's say this is coming down the tunnel wall. This is the bottom. Whatever. I kind of do it upside down. But right here I want it to pull away. That's gonna give us a gap. If we make this radius bigger than 50, 'cause that's on the floor pan, this is bigger, that leaves us with a little gap. That's why it's 52. I mean, we didn't have to measure anything. 2 mils is a good enough gap to, so they're not looking much. Seems kind of small, but that's the way it is. So you're gonna do that. Then I'll just kind of finish it off here. This is a little bit faster. After we do all that, then we combine. Oh, we can combine the other side here. I gotta hide some stuff that I don't need to see anymore. We make this. What happened there? I just did the wrong thing. What did you just hide? Why did it jump up there? Oh, because I was in my active footage. We do this again right there. Weld flange defined. Oh, I see what I had. I should have hit this. The weld flange defined is this. It looks like a big trough. Okay. That's when, you know, we had that wall. We put a 499 point some fillet on it between them. Then we took those two and combined them to the bottom right here, 52 mils. Then we did another one over here, whatever the radius was, whatever I told you. Okay. That stuff, that giant trough, all of that is to make the little weld flange that goes around the outside. Almost all that's gonna go away. All we're gonna be left with is the little tiny piece all the way around. The way we do it, I'm sorry, and we actually, there's one more blend, to take what we did work on so far, the U-channel itself, you're gonna blend that to the rest of this. Now it probably makes more sense. I just gotta trim away everything outside of this, all the way around it, okay? We do that, this will be a little faster now. We do that by saying, well, you know, let's extrude. I thought I did some extruded. Oh yeah, we do have up in the front surfaces, in the U-channel. Right, we have front surfaces. I don't know if you remember, we did extracted body. So there's the front wall. We got an extracted body in the rear surfaces. Right there, we got an extracted body in the top surfaces. Those three things, okay? You're gonna take those, then you're gonna offset those. So I'll do all three. You're gonna offset those 25 mils, like that. Actually, I missed one. But you're gonna offset those 25 mils, then you're gonna blend them together. And blend it together. Like that. I'm gonna hide the originals. I know I'm showing and hiding a lot of things. I'm gonna actually go do these in my file. So you borrow the front, top, and the rear surfaces, offset them outward where we know the trim is gonna be. And that piece I got right there, think of that as cutting away all this excess flange stuff. Because that whole big thing is all the flange. But we cut it all away. We do a trim sheet down here, where using this tool, think of that as a piece of metal, using that tool, we got rid of all that other stuff. I'll hide this tool, and that's what we're left with. That's what we're left with. So this flange was really all that other surface back there, and this flange, and that flange. So we spent all that time making those offsets and blends and, you know, measuring everything. All that's left of all that was just that little 25 mil strip around it. But it's exactly made where we need it. And again, it's kind of hard to tell here, but let me see if I can do it this way. If I can rotate it here, you can sort of see if I do it just right. It's hard to tell, but there's a gap right here. This is not touching right there. It's touching here, touching down here, but it's not touching in there, because that fillet pulls it away a little bit. Okay? And that's it. There's a lot of explanations of things that you may or may not have caught, but it is happening. It's stuff that, you know, I want you to start thinking about it. You know, doing things in the right order, and especially body faces. Hopefully I started to convince you why it's important to pick body faces whenever you're picking faces for like a face blend or